I don't normally cry. One of my close friends makes fun of me about it. But this past Tuesday, I walked over to church, sat in the pew, and broke down. Monday night was all about adrenaline. Tuesday morning, adrenaline. But sitting in that pew for the first time since the suspension of public masses, the weight of all that was going on hit me. There, I began to feel my pain. And I began to feel yours. Your pain. To be separated from the Mass. To be separated from receiving God in Holy Communion. My pain to be separated from you. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I find myself dragging my feet to church because I know that you aren't there. Today, the church celebrates Laetare Sunday, Rejoice Sunday, the halfway point of our Lenten journey. Today we celebrate that, but I don't want to. And I presume I'm not alone. These last few weeks we've been reflecting on the fact that suffering with Jesus changes us. Suffering without Jesus just hurts. And God's giving us a chance to put our money where our mouth is. All right, you're talking a big talk about suffering. Let's see you put it into practice. We chose the theme for each Sunday of Lent weeks ago. Last week we spoke about the wounds, the sufferings that are self-inflicted. This week we reflect on the wounds, the sufferings that just come our way. What does the Bible have to say about this kind of suffering? In our gospel today, we encounter a man born into the suffering of blindness, born with the wound of blindness. The disciples asked Jesus about the cause of this man's suffering. What brought it about? Was he born blind because of his sins or the sins of his parents? Jesus responds, neither. Jesus doesn't associate the man's suffering with his sins. This isn't a wound that he's inflicted on himself. It's not a wound his parents inflicted on him. The purpose of this suffering is that the works of God might be made visible through him. Keep in mind that verse from our first reading. Man sees the appearance, but the Lord looks into the heart. Man sees the externals. God sees the full picture. Man's way of seeing and God's way of seeing are different. For the disciples, this man's blindness can only mean one thing. Either he sinned or his parents did. But God is showing the disciples and showing the blind man the deeper meaning of his suffering, the deeper purpose of his wound. Arriving at that deeper meaning, it doesn't happen all at once. The blind man can physically see almost immediately. The deeper meaning, the deeper purpose takes time. How does it happen? Well, the blind man is interrogated 3 times. It's only through the suffering of these interrogations that he finds the full meaning and purpose of his suffering. In these interrogations, he's forced to explain to himself and to others what has happened. And having to explain it over and over and over again, he arrives at understanding. Without the interrogations, he would have been like one of the 9 lepers who are healed, but then go away ungrateful. Because of the interrogations, he now has not only physical sight, but spiritual sight. Spiritual sight is the ultimate thing. Seeing things like God sees them. Seeing not just the externals, but the full picture. I'm sure some of you have already made the connection between the man born blind and our current situation. Man sees the appearance, but the Lord looks into the heart. In this time, we look at the externals. We see the externals of the stock market, businesses and schools closing, sickness, death, loss of personal income, separation from those that we love. We see the externals and they are bad, they are horrible, they are terrific, they are horrific. But the Lord sees, and He desires to show us the full picture. What is the full meaning of this suffering? What is its deeper purpose? And just like it took the suffering of those interrogations for the blind man to receive spiritual sight, so with us. What do we do with these insights? I think you know. The Lord desires to interrogate us right now. To sit with us, to question us. If we submit to His interrogations, if we answer His questions, we will find meaning and purpose. I have to admit that I haven't done that very well. What I really want to do right now is pretend like this isn't happening. And I've done that in the last week. What I really want to do right now is numb myself to the pain of this. And I've done that too. I drag my feet to church. I drag my feet to prayer because I know that in church and in prayer I'll have to feel this pain, encounter this suffering. But if I don't let God interrogate me in prayer, this suffering can't change me. If you don't let God interrogate you in prayer, this suffering can't change you. Can't change your family. Can't change our parish family. Without Jesus, this suffering just hurts. Already, we're seeing the fruit, the grace that God is bringing out in this time. In 20 years, folks will ask, when did y'all start praying together as a family? When did y'all start going to Mass every Sunday? When did you get more involved in your child's religious education? When did you start going back to confession? And our answers will all be the same. It was March of 2020, the coronavirus. I don't feel like rejoicing. I don't feel like being interrogated by God. But I know I have to. It's the only way that this suffering becomes change. The only way that I'll see the full picture.